Right, this is take two. Let's get everything shot. There we go. So the first take didn't work. Well, it did work, but the chat didn't say anything. It didn't come up. So it's up there now. I'm just going to type into the live chat to let people know that they can chat with me about their perfumes. So that should be it. So slight bit of teething trouble to begin with, but I think we are up and running now. Hopefully you can all see this and you can hear me and all that kind of stuff, because I don't really know. It's the first live stream I've ever really done, apart from the little previews that I did the other day. So it's sort of, making it up as I go along, I suppose. So let's start with a bit of an introduction into what all this is about. So hello, welcome to Scented Souvenirs. This is a project that I'm running as part of ArtWaves Festival, Bridlington, scheduled for 2020 last year. It's been moved online for 2021 this year. So what my project is all about is holidays. So basically what the whole kind of project is about, participants giving me 3 words to describe holidays, their experience of holidays. And I will take those 3 words and turn them into a perfume using the sort of materials and equipment you can see here in front of you. So the initial project was going to be quite spontaneous. People would come to me physically. They'd roll a dice, actually, and whatever the dice said, I would sort of interpret and turn into a perfume, sort of a narrative sort of based perfume. Because of coronavirus, we couldn't do the dice, we couldn't do the physical sort of activity. So as we've moved online, what I did was, on my website, I allowed people to just give me 3 words, 3 separate words to do with perfumes. And then I told them that I'd make the perfumes during these live sessions, but also during these live sessions, people can comment in the live chat 3 sort of words to do with perfumes, and I will sort of spontaneously in situ create the perfume. So that's it in terms of the premise, in terms of what I intend to do over the next 2 days here. So I've scheduled 5 perfumes to be made this session, but if anybody comes and gives me in the live chat, then I will make perfumes based on what they've said. So it's kind of as simple as that. And of course, we don't have to just make perfumes. We can sort of chat about anything, really. What happens normally in these kind of situations is you can have very long sort of conversations with people physically when you're doing sort of festivals, kind of about anything, really. And sort of, I don't mind retaining that kind of interaction. So if you've got any questions that isn't even necessarily to do with perfumes, let me know in the live chat, because we're trying to keep it sort of as true to physical sort of life, I guess, as possible. So the first perfume I have scheduled is at sort of 10:15. So I'll start making a perfume then. I've tried to not really look at the responses that I've received, because I want it to sort of retain that sort of spontaneity, which was what it was going to be all about when it was going to be a physical sort of thing. But these are the sort of tools of the trade, if you like. We've got a selection of fragrance oils and essential oils over here, which is the sort of building blocks, if you like, of perfume making. They're all going to be made using perfume as alcohol. So they're going to be alcohol-based perfumes, and they're going to be made in these 30 ml plastic bottles, although these are sort of eco-friendly, recyclable plastic bottles, which I've sourced especially for this project. So that's kind of where we're at, really. I've sort of kitted out my studio in order to make it look a little bit like we're on our holidays. We've got our bucket and spades. I've got quite a holiday-based t-shirt on. We've gone and got this painting, which just adds a bit of a backdrop to proceedings. Kind of an interesting painting to paint, because it was like painted with the intention that it was going to be a background, which is kind of an unusual sort of, I guess, process, really, because you don't want it to stand out too much. You don't want too much detail in there. So I've made it relatively sort of simple. We've obviously got a bit of detail in the old sort of bottle that I've made there. But yeah, that's it in terms of what we've got around here. If you've got any questions about what you can see, feel free to pop a comment in. What I'm going to do just before we start with the 10-15 perfumes, I'm just going to check on the old phone, well, to share this particular sort of broadcast, which is a slightly boring process. I probably could have done it before the broadcast went out, but I'm very new to all this, so I'm going to try and do it here. Bear with me. Oh, here we go. So if I share, it's nearly there. Share it to Facebook. I don't know what else to share. I didn't share. So this is rather dull. I'm aware of how boring this is probably to you guys. However, it needs done, unfortunately. Kind of share. Okay, I've got it sorted. I think I've got it sorted. So I'll just share this around a little bit, try and get more people watching. Thank you very much for watching and for persevering with this process, because it's not that exciting. Well, I'm nearly there. That seems to have worked. Great. Okay, so I've shared it around a bit, see if that makes any sort of difference whatsoever. It might not, probably won't, because that's always the way on Facebook these days. Got a bit of water. So the oils that we're going to be using, they're a combination of essential oils and fragrance oils. Stuff like this, cedarwood. I don't know if you can see that. That's probably not helping. This is an essential oil. If they've got this kind of livery, like, so they've got like a sort of block of colour and a little bit of sort of text about what it is. That tends to be an essential oil that I'm using. They're predominantly essential oils, and there's also some fragrance oils. This honeysuckle here is a fragrance oil. The difference, of course, between essential oils and fragrance oils is that essential oils are a natural product, so they contain natural ingredients. Fragrance oils are synthetic. So if I had an essential oil, orange, for example, that would be made using oranges, actual oranges that have been sort of steam pressed, cold pressed, in order to get the smell from them, get the oil from them, and then subsequently the smell from them. And then fragrance oils are oils that are synthetic, so they've been made in a lab that smell like the certain product, but don't actually contain any of the real product. So that's kind of the difference between them both. Fragrance oils, although intuitively you might think fragrance oils don't sound like a particularly good thing to use because they're not natural, they do have benefits. Some things you can't find in nature, so like gingerbread, for example. So you'd have to attain a fragrance oil of that. So it makes the amount of scents that you can purchase and use a lot bigger because of the fact that some things aren't natural. There's cost implications in using essential oils too, because a rose, for example, essential oil or an absolute, costs a lot of money. Costs about £40–50 potentially for something this size, which is 10ml. Whereas you could buy one for a couple of pounds if you wanted to. So fragrance oils can be quite good for sort of introducing yourself to the idea of making perfume. Yeah, that's more or less kind of it. There's other little sort of nuances and reasons why you'd use them, but that's kind of the reasons why I use them. Most of the cost implications, honestly. So we're fast approaching 10:15, which is, sorry, I just was distracted there because the door went, but I think it's all sorted. We're fast approaching 10:15. Well, in fact, it could be I've got a hat, a sun hat to wear, because obviously it's like we're on holidays. So that might well have been the sun hat. I don't know. So if in a second session, I might well be wearing a sun hat, which would be extremely exciting thing for you to see. Right, enough of this babbling on. We are going to now make the first perfume. The first perfume is by, well, the participant who gave me the 3 words is Sharon Mossbeck. So we all know who Sharon Mossbeck is. She's my wife and artist in her own right. And this is our studio. It's not actually our studio. I'll level with you now. It's actually our house that we're having a bedroom sort of refurbishment, and in between it, I've gone and sort of set up camp in the bedroom. So that's a thing. I don't know why I really explained that, but anyway, Sharon Mossbeck is the first participant, and her response to 3 words about holidays was sea. So the sea, caravans, and seafood. So the sea, caravans, and seafood. So they're the 3 words that I've got to use to try and create a perfume. I've not really looked at this, the responses, as I say. So it feels like a brand new sort of response that I've received there. So it's about finding scents or thinking about ways through interpretation and investigation, thinking about the scents that I want to use to sort of evoke holidays based on those 3 words. So the sea, caravans, and seafood. So intuitively, you sort of try to find sea-based scents. So we've got things like driftwood. We've got things like sea breeze and things like that. But they're quite on the nose, I suppose, as a scent. And then caravans. So I guess you could think about the sort of the nostalgic sort of scent of caravans, which is quite tricky because I guess everybody has different interpretations of that. So I'm just having a look at the scents I've got available. Some of these are down here as well. What have we got? We have got Summer Fresh, which is like a sea breezy sort of fragrance. So I'll take that to begin with. I think I'll just take the sort of obvious stuff to begin with, and then sort of see where I end up. We've got a dry musk scent, which might be quite useful for the caravan idea. What else have we got? So when I think of caravans, it's kind of like you've got kind of the caravan, but you've got the sort of surroundings of the caravan as well. Like I sort of remember sort of the scent of sort of cut grass around caravans as much as I do the sort of interior of caravans. So that's something to think about too. What have we got so far then? We've got musk, summer fragrance. This cedar wood I might use just because it gives you a little bit of sort of slightly earthy, slightly woody sort of fragrance that can be sort of evocative of caravans, I suppose. Like I say, I'm just sort of finding sort of quite broad scents at the moment, just to just look at and think about. We've got musk, sea breeze, cedarwood, lemon and mint. That's quite a big, quite a lot of scents in there. I say quite a lot. It's 5. I mean, it's not a huge amount. Peppermint, yeah. Coriander, jasmine. I'm not really feeling some of these ones. Well, we've got seaweed. Well, that's one to use, isn't it? So seaweed, I guess. Let's have an actual smell of this particular one. It's quite light. It has got a bit of a sort of seafoody sort of scent to it. It's kind of got that kind of like calamari scent. So maybe I could use that black pepper I use in quite a lot of stuff because I like it, but I don't think it's relevant for this particular. Honey, cinnamon, raspberry, amber, ginger, rosemary. I wonder if rosemary might just be evocative of caravans to an extent. It is actually. It's kind of it almost feels quite a local sort of smell. I don't know how best to describe it. It smells like it's got a sort of sense of place, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to leave it there for now. Petitgrain. So there's stuff like petitgrain sweet orange, which I always just think, oh yeah, great, I can use that. But it's just because I like using them. I guess it's a case of trying to be quite disciplined and not just use the stuff that you intuitively like necessarily. Bay leaf, camphor cane. Can't see thyme. I wonder if thyme just gives us that slightly caravan-y scent. Potentially. Citronella. That sort of smells a bit like sort of outdoor barbecue-y kind of scent. Well, because you can use it to sort of ward off flies and stuff, I guess. Okay, so we've got a range of perfumes, of fragrances here. I'm going to definitely use the driftwood and the seaweed because I think they smell the most like the sea and that kind of the outdoor sort of environment to do with holidays. So sea breeze, seaweed. I'm going to use the musk just to. Oh yeah, that is quite. I can see. Yeah, that's kind of evocative of caravans actually. I'm going to use musk and cedarwood. and I'm going to use seaweed, summer fragrance, no, driftwood, sorry. And then I'll just use a bit of, I guess rosemary could work. Okay, let's go with that. As I said, I'm trying to be quite spontaneous, so I'm going to officially go with cedarwood and musk, driftwood and seaweed, and a bit of rosemary at the top. And hopefully that'll be evocative of sea caravans and seafood. Now, so this is the first perfume I've made, so I'll sort of give you a bit of a rundown as to what's going on here. I've just taken some some jeweler's scales out, because perfume, in order to make a perfume, it's all about sort of measuring the sort of quantity of oil against the quantity of perfume as alcohol. And we're making eau de toilette fragrances. So that basically means we need to put 5% of the overall fragrance is going to be the actual oils themselves, and 95% is going to be the perfume as alcohol. So we basically need to try and work out how much 5% is, and to do that, I've already sort of done the maths previously, and it is about 1.1 grams. Okay, so 1.1 grams of oil is going to go into this bottle in order to constitute around about 5% of the overall fragrance. So the bottle goes on the scale, and I reset the scale so that it's at 0, and then we just begin pouring out the oil, really. Obviously, this is quite a quick sort of process. It's not going to be an absolutely perfectly made sort of perfume, because I've not been able to work out the quantities particularly well, so I'm going on sort of intuition, really. I'm going to sort of kind of put a few drops of each one in there and see where we end up in terms of how much that's, how many sort of grams that's going to be. So we'll start with the cedarwood. Yeah, quite an earthy, kind of a bit nutty as a sort of scent, actually. But I'll put 1 drop or maybe 2 drops of cedarwood in the bottle. I'll put 2 drops in. So that's at 0.1. So we need to get up to 1.1. So we're getting there. The next one is the musk. The musk is a fragrance oil. And another reason why you use fragrance oils over essential oils is because the ethical sort of connotations of things like musk, and with sort of whale saliva, deer saliva, beaver saliva, those kind of scents are now synthetic, obviously, rather than natural, because we don't want to be finding sort of scents through animals. So another reason why you might find a fragrance oil is because ethically it's the way to go. So musk, we'll put 2 drops of this musk into the bottle. 1, 2. 0.17 now. It's getting there, isn't it? We've got the driftwood next. And that's going to be 2. Oh, right, okay, that's 3 drops. And I believe the seaweed hasn't got a stopper thing on, so it's pet time. Two drops of the seaweed. And then the rosemary is next. And 2 drops again. Right, we're about halfway there, but we're at 0.4. So I'll just sort of double it up and maybe add an extra bit of musk, because I think musk is the most evocative one of caravans, as I can find. So I'll put 1 more rosemary in. The rosemary's got a sort of earthy, like I say, sort of kind of outside of the caravan, just immediately outside of the caravan sort of scent, if that makes sense. And then pop some more seaweed in. Ooh. And then I'll pop some musk in. I'll put 3 drops of musk into the bottle. 1, 2, 3. 3 of driftwood. 1, 2, 3. And I'll put 1 more cedarwood. I don't want to put a huge amount of cedarwood in because it's quite a potent smell and it might overwhelm the fragrance overall. So that's 1. And we are up to 1.1. No, it's going to be mad. 1.08. That's close enough to 1.1. Not going to quite be 5%, but it's not far off. It doesn't matter too much. If it's a little bit under 5%, it will still constitute another toilette fragrance. So that is the scent in the bottle. We've got cedarwood, seaweed, musk, driftwood, rosemary. Yeah, that's it. That's 5 in the end. So now we've got the perfume as alcohol. So the perfume as alcohol is a sort of specially formulated alcohol-based substance, which is designed to be kind to skin, to dilute effectively, to sort of even the fragrance out. So you want a nice balanced fragrance throughout. And we need 30 ml, 30 ml perfume. So 30 ml going in to the beaker and then directly into the bottle. So there we are. In it goes. Splendid. Top goes on. Eventually, there we go. And then we shake it for a few minutes. I'm probably going to shake it for only about 20 seconds, and then sort of off camera I'll shake them all a little bit more because it's harder to talk. It sort of vibrates the sort of vocal cords a bit when you're shaking bottles, and also it's quite boring. So I will stop around about now. That's the first perfume made. I'm going to just pop on a label on each one, on each perfume that I'm going to make, just so we all know whose is whose. This is Sharon Mossbeck's, of course. Thank you, Sharon, for your 3 words. And there we are. I think eventually, when we're all allowed out to play again, I think I'm going to see if anybody just sort of wants these perfumes, you know, the people the participants, because it's a nice thing to gift to someone. It's kind of, most of my work, I sort of think of as being quite collaborative. It sort of wouldn't exist without participants, not just this particular project, but quite a lot of my projects. It's quite a collaborative effort involved. So I always sort of, if I can gift, so we're making a huge amount of noise there. So if I can gift sort of some sort of product to the participant, then I will do, because you know it wouldn't exist without their input. So Sharon, you can have that perfume whenever. Well, Sharon can have it tonight because she's just downstairs at the moment. But anybody else who has submitted their responses, eventually, I think it'd be nice to gift you the perfumes. So that's the first one made. That's Sharon Mossbeck's perfume, all nicely created, all done. So that's one down. Incidentally, so I use cedarwood, seaweed, driftwood, musk, and rosemary there. Now, perfume, in my work, I try and be as sort of disciplined I can to the craft of perfume making. I'm not an artist that just sort of tries to throw all these things sort of together in my work. I try and research how to make perfumes and be as sort of stringent as possible on the perfume making process. I think to have a bit of sort of integrity, my work needs to do that, because I think it can be quite easy to be a bit gimmicky when you're looking at scent in art. And I think one way of sort of not being particularly gimmicky is to just be disciplined and to try and be as sort of stringent as possible to process, because the process is old. It's an historical process. It's sort of loaded with historical, cultural connotations that sort of stretch back for centuries, and I want to embrace that in my work, really. So I try and be as sort of stringent as possible to the process, and as such, I adhere to the idea that perfume needs to be created using notes, so fragrance notes. Each of these bottles is a specific fragrance note. It's either going to be a top note, a middle note, or a base note. You need all three to create a fully sort of functional perfume. The top notes are the ones that you smell first, so they leave sort of a bit of a first impression. And then the base notes are what you smell last. They leave a lasting impression. And to bridge those two together, you've got the middle notes. In the perfume that I just made for Sharon there, the musk and the cedarwood are the base notes. So they're the ones that you smell last. The rosemary is the top note. So that's the one that will give you that sort of first impression. And then you've got the seaweed and the driftwood, which are going to be sort of base, sort of mid notes. So they're the ones that you sort of smell in between. And that's how it works, really. Again, I'm not a perfume making expert or anything like that. I am an artist that uses perfume, so I'm on the outside of that industry looking in, and I've learned over the years how to make perfumes by sort of research and talking to the industry experts and experimentation and all this kind of stuff. So I've got my own sort of process down. It's by no means a fully sort of formed process. I'm learning all the time. And I don't have those sort of core sort of skills a master perfumer would have, because I've not had any formal training. But that's fine, because I'm an artist using perfume rather than a perfumer. I'm under no illusion that these aren't going to be absolutely top quality perfumes that you could sell in shops. They are pieces of artwork that have their own sort of meaning and their own value away from that. So that's my sort of philosophy, I guess, when making perfumes, making work in general, I suppose. So yes, that's one down anyway. And so the next the next participant is scheduled for 10:45. So we've got 10 more minutes. If anybody's watching that wants to give me 3 words to do with holidays, they can do so by typing a comment in the comments box, which I don't know exactly where it's going to be on your system, but it's on the right hand side for me. So yeah, let's have a quick drink. And of course, don't feel free to ask me anything really. I'm here until midday, and then again from 1 till 3. So 4 different sessions over 2 days is how we're going to be running this. Yeah. 10:36 on the 6th of March, and this is ArtWaves Festival, sort of online festival weekend this weekend. ArtWaves was going to be a festival held in Bridlington, I think it was last May, and obviously coronavirus hit, so it got rescheduled to March. And I think we all thought maybe we'd be able to do it physically in March, although we were still wary of the idea that we might not. I say we, the festival organisers, really. Alas, we didn't get around to being there physically, but we can do it nice and virtually and safely this weekend. So good. And actually, I quite like the setup that I've managed to get going here. Actually, we've got buckets and spades. We've got little bits of fruit around. I've got my t-shirt on, which is quite summery, isn't it? We've got a seagull and sunglasses. I was going to wear sunglasses, but I wouldn't be able to see anything because I don't have prescription sunglasses. Hopefully, we'll have a sun hat yeah, from the afternoon session onwards. So I think downstairs we have some post during this live session. So we can all look forward to that from 1 o'clock today. Got these tapes, which I love using, these washi tapes. Maybe I'll give Sharon's bottle a little bit of a scene to with these tapes. What have we got? So, well, we've got sea, caravans, and seafood. So I guess sea, we could have a bit of blue, a bit of green and a bit of blue, maybe. Let's pop it on. Decorating bottles is a bit of a dark art sometimes. I've sort of learned that washi tapes are sort of the way to go because they're really versatile. You can sort of do whatever you like with them. You can cut them into quite intricate shapes and all this kind of thing. Previously, I've done stuff like, you know, paint on bottles and gold leaf bottles and all this kind of stuff. And it looks good, but it's I think the washi tapes are just so sort of handy to have around that I use them predominantly, really. A bit of blue. So I've been making perfumes for around about 6 or 7 years now. Started off as a project, rather a residency project here in Sheffield that looked at making portraits of, well, specifically of other artists. Sort of progressed from there, really. There's Sharon's bottle with a bit of blue and green on, just to symbolise a little bit of what she has said. It looks a little bit better on the camera as well. Yeah, so my whole sort of perfume making my whole perfume making journey, I guess, if you like, came from a residency that I did in 2016 here in Sheffield that saw me make perfume portraits of other artists. And it was quite a similar process to this, really. Artists gave me a few words about why they made art and their sort of the processes, behaviours, thoughts to do with that. And then through a sort of combination of investigation and intuition, I sort of tried to make perfumes that represented what they'd said and therefore make something that captures the essence of their sort of artist's persona, if you like. And then these perfumes were presented in sort of exhibitions in galleries in Sheffield initially, and then sort of across the UK after that. The last one I did was in 2019 at Bristol, Scented Souvenirs Gallery in Bristol. And then, of course, coronavirus hit, so I sort of had to rethink a little bit about how I made work and why I made work. And then this project was going to happen May 2020. But in 2020, I didn't do a huge amount of work, really, in terms of making perfumes. I did a few sort of video series, and also me and Sharon decided to get our act together and open an art gallery here in Sheffield. So we've done a bit of that. I've just noticed there's a few live chats going on. We've got Sharon that says, "Thank you for the perfume." Sharon, you're welcome. The perfume's here for you. We've got Brian Daines, who's an artist that me and Sharon know pretty well. Hi, Brian. You've said, how about pier, steam train, and rock pool? So we've got ourselves a live one, a live perfume to make sort of in situ. So I'm going to try and just think about it quite spontaneously, quite quickly. Pier, steam train, and rock pool. So pier, we've got, again, we could use sort of like wood sort of based scents and sort of salt based sort of scents. Let's use, let's have a look. I know I've got something here called Hoe Leaf, which is quite a light sort of woody based scent that might be quite evocative of piers. It does a little bit. I'm gonna put that in the sort of maybe sort of area. There's things, I guess, like things that you do on the pier and things that you'd eat, like, you know, donuts, candy floss, all this kind of stuff. that I've got a little bit of. I've got a green apple, which I know I didn't just say then, but I'm going to give it a quick sniff to see if it's got any sort of. It's very sweet, so maybe like a drop of that, just to sort of evoke the idea of sort of the food, sort of outdoors on pier fronts and that kind of thing. Doesn't smell particularly like green apple, it has to be said. It does smell very sweet though, so I'll pop that on the maybe sort of pile as well. What else have we got there? Steam train. Steam train is going to be quite tricky, but yeah, good challenge. Rock pool. So again, it's kind of quite. I'm going to use the. I'm going to use the driftwood again. I hope I don't use it too much, the driftwood, because it's quite an easy one to sort of fall back on. But rock pool's kind of got, you know, that kind of salty sort of scent to it, which this does as well. So we've got green apple, her leaf, driftwood, steam train is got, oh, I'll tell you what as well. We've got honey here, which again sounds like it's not going to go with what Brian said there, but it's got a certain sweetness to it, which sort of reminds me of the outdoors, you know, walking on pier fronts, the scent of that kind of, you know, candy floss, donuts kind of in the air. So I'm going to use honey, which should be nice. So the honey, green apple, hoe leaf, driftwood. I wonder if that's enough. It's that steam train, isn't it? That steam train is something that I've not thought about too much during this. Let's have a think. Oh, black pepper. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to start making the perfume, but whilst thinking about the steam train scent. So let's get this on the go. So the hoe leaf is the base note. So I'm going to pop the hoe leaf in first. That's kind of got that kind of sort of woody, sort of wet, sort of wood sort of scent to it. That is evocative of the pier sort of frontage, I think. So we're going to put 3 drops of that in. We've got the honey, which has got the scent of the sort of a general sort of outdoor scent, I suppose. This is the mid note. By general outdoor scent, I mean general sort of pier front sort of scent, really. Put 4 of that in. Oh well, it's in there now. Then the driftwood again for the outdoor sort of. And the green apple, which is just sort of reinforces the idea of being sort of outdoors in a seaside, that sugary, sort of syrupy fragrance. It's not coming out particularly well. Here it comes. 1, 2. It's not very graceful, this particular scent coming out. Three, okay, good. I'm just trying to think of that sort of steam train scent. I'm trying to think, sort of inside the interior of a steam train as well. You've got that sort of leathery, sort of old sort of leather, almost like an old book sort of scent. I wonder if that musk would work actually quite well for that. Let's have a sort of smell of this. Yeah, I think it would actually. I'm going to pop the musk in as well. This is quite similar to Sharon's in the end, with that kind of, I guess, instead of, well, I'll just put this in first before I start speaking in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's put 4 in for each one. So. Ooh, that was 2 more. I am sort of very much winging it now, I think, is the official expression. And 1 more of that. So what we've got there is we've got the musk and the hoe leaf, we've got the driftwood and the honey, and we've got green apple. So we've got the sort of musk. Yeah, it's kind of predominantly the musk really that represents the steam train. Then we've got the whole leaf, honey and green apple that have got the kind of the pier and the pier frontage sort of centre them. And then we've got the driftwood, which is kind of incorporates the rock pool as well. So there we go. That was quite a challenging one to do. Thank you, Brian, for the challenge there. We are going to add, as ever, the perfumer's alcohol into the bottle. There we are. And I'm just going straight in the bowl. And then we need a label for him. It's one of those things where, because it's so sort of intuitive and spontaneous, I'll probably end up thinking about things that I could have included, you know, down the line. I could have, you know, in a few hours' time, I might think, oh, I should put that in, I should put that in. But, you know, I want to retain that sort of spontaneity. So, Brian. Perfume number 2 has been created for Brian Daines. Whoa. Fantastic. Quick shake. Of course, we will, I might embellish that a little bit more later on, but there we go, 2 perfumes there already made. Brian, I hope that was all right. I hope I've done your 3 words a bit of justice there. And thanks for the challenge of the steam train rock pool combination there. I sort of didn't know where that was going at first, but I think I've done a good job. We're going to move quickly on to Chris Oliver, who has sent me 3 separate words previously, scheduled for 10:45, a little bit later than Bill. Chris, but if you're watching, hi. Your responses to the 3 words are pasty, rocks, and walking. So pasty, rocks, and walking. So we have 3 quite different responses already, which is interesting. Yeah, pasty, rocks, and walking. So we have got stuff like walking. I always think of kind of things a little bit like lavender. And the reason why is because I sort of read a while ago that lavender is really sort of, I think historically lavender's been used to sort of aid with kind of like orienteering, walking sessions, hiking and that kind of thing, to sort of, I guess, perk you up a little bit and allowing you to sort of continue journeys. So from a sort of narrative point of view, I think lavender's quite a nice one to use for the walking side of things. We've also got pasty and rocks. So rocks, again, I'm sort of thinking earthy sort of fragrances. I'm thinking, when I saw the word rocks, I initially thought of patchouli, actually, because it's got that sort of outdoor, sort of earthy, sort of almost mossy sort of smell to it. Yeah, and I think patchouli is going to be a good one to use just to sort of symbolise the sort of rock. So we've got patchouli and lavender so far. And then we've got, what have we got? Pasty. So we've got sort of, we could sort of go to town with this one a little bit, couldn't we? We could think about the sort of things inside pasties, or we could think of sort of where you eat pasties. Outside, again, sort of outdoors, pier, seafront type smells. Let's think what we're going to do. Pasties. Obviously, intuitively, you think, oh, food. So let's try and find a food smell. But actually, because pasties, you know, they'll be quite quite meaty, I guess, quite sort of savoury. We haven't got a huge amount of savoury scents, actually. Let's find. We've got coriander seed. I wonder if that's. I'm gonna to sort of just highlight the idea of eating, I guess, in general, sort of on sort of holidays. And I leave that in for now, but it's not what I want to keep or it's not the only thing I want to do that pasty. So what else have we got? Say we haven't got food-based items, but do I want to be as on the nose as that? That's the question, isn't it? I suppose. Lemongrass, spearmint. Well, black pepper actually, which is what I was talking about a few sessions ago. I wonder if that's actually quite evocative of sort of eating. Coriander seed and black pepper, spiked lavender. So I like the lavender because it's not as obvious necessarily, is it, as some of the other ones. But you know what? I like the combination in general: the patchouli, the coriander seed, the black pepper, and the spiked lavender. I think is a nice combination anyway. So maybe we'll just go with that. I am aware that I've not actually got a top note there. So I wonder if I can find one. There's pimento berry, which is quite like black pepper. And I wonder if I'm going to tell you what, I'll put a drop or two in. I'll put a drop or two in. So it's not going to contain a huge amount of top note. That's okay. We'll just the top note will evaporate and then make way for the spiked lavender, black pepper, and coriander seed, which are the mid notes, quite quickly. But that's okay. So patchouli, coriander seed, black pepper, spiked lavender, pimento berry. Chris, they're the ones. And hello, Chris. I don't notice now you've been live chatting a little bit. Hello there. Thank you for your contribution here. I'm glad that you like the combo. And well, great stuff on getting the oil there. Hope you've been enjoying using that. As I said just earlier, I'll probably try and gift this to you at some point in the future. I don't know when or how to do that, but I intend to gift the perfumes to the participants because I see it as a collaboration, really. So that might well be on its way to you at some point. I believe Chris, I did a perfume portrait of you for my an exhibition that I did, I think, in Nottingham a few years ago. Pretty sure that was you. Hi, even if it wasn't you, hi. But anyway, I am now going to start making Chris's perfume using the patchouli first of all, which is the base note. So I think the general rule of thumb seems to be 4 drops of each one. One, 2, 4. Patchouli is quite a thick, sort of dense oil, so it obviously weighs a little bit more than some of the others. I'm only going to put 1 drop of coriander seed in because it's quite a potent smell. I don't want it to overwhelm the perfume too much. Black pepper I'll put 4 in because I'm a bit of a stickler for the black pepper. Ooh, 4. Spiked lavender next. Oh, it hasn't got a stopper. Right. So it is going in. You probably can't see it particularly well. And then the pimento berry at the end. Four. Excellent. So there we go. 4. 4. We've got 5, haven't we? What have we got? We've got spiked lavender, pimento berry, black pepper, whole leaf. No, not whole leaf. What do we have in there? Oh, patchouli in there. Yeah, patchouli. Okay, great. Anyway, so I will now pop the 30 ml in. our perfumer's alcohol. That's going straight into the bottle. Excellent. The patchouli's made it look quite, a different colour to the other two there. Quite a subtle sort of yellowy sort of colour. One thing I just realised I need to do is actually write down what I put in each of these perfumes. So I'm just doing that now. What did we have in that one? Okay, so that's Chris's perfume created. Chris, what have you said there? Yeah, great stuff. And it was you, excellent. So hi. That's Chris's perfume created. I'm going to pop a little bit of a label on there. When we get a bit of time later on, I might just embellish these a little bit more than I have done. There's Chris's perfume, Chris Oliver. Pop that there. I'll give this a bit of a wipe. These are great, these paper towels. I use them. These are like the absolute godsend, these things. So there we go. 1 hour in, we've got 3 perfumes there. We've got Brian's, Sharon's, and Chris's. Great stuff. It's quite a lot of fun just to have to very sort of quickly think about the things that I want to put in there. It's not how I normally make perfume. It's a little bit kind of counterintuitive because I tend to go away, think about the perfumes I'm going to make before I make them. And I've tried very hard not to do that here. I've not been looking at the responses because I wanted it to be quite snappy and to be spontaneous and all this kind of stuff, which is what it would have been like in the festival itself. So that's the 3 perfumes made, and we're going to go on straight away to a 4th perfume from Lynne Chapman, who has sent me her responses previously. So Lynne Chapman, your responses were flip-flops, seagulls, and caravan. So caravan again, and then flip-flops and seagulls as well. So let's think about that. Obviously, with Sharon's response was also caravan, and we used musk for that, didn't we? We used the sort of musk scent. I'll put that there for now. I'm not necessarily going to use it just because it's the same response, but intuitively I want to leave that there and think about it while I'm thinking about the rest of the perfume. Flip-flops and seagulls. Interesting. Obviously seagulls, you kind of think about being outside, you think about it stealing food. You don't necessarily think of the scent of a seagull, you sort of think about the scent of the food that it's stolen, or the scent of the outdoor sort of environment that you're in. So that's something to think about. Flip-flops, again, you could sort of, there is a scent to flip-flops in that they, when they're new, they have that sort of slightly sort of rubbery sort of scent to them, but also you can think about what flip-flops evoke in terms of walking on the beach in flip-flops, or just being on a holiday in flip-flops. Again, it doesn't have to be as on the nose as they smell like, new sort of shoe smell necessarily. But again, actually musk would work quite well for flip-flops in that case. I wonder if we've got some white musk here, which is a little bit sort of lighter in sort of scent than the dark musk that I've got. It's kind of got a bit of cottony sort of smell to it though, so I'm not sure if that's quite what we're going to go for here. What else have we got? Flip-flops, seagulls, caravan. Seagulls, intuitively, I think about the food based sort of sense. Because when I think of seagulls, I think of seagulls stealing stuff. In fact, you know, like this. But so maybe I'll go for a slightly sort of sweet. Obviously, things like vinegary sort of smells. Maybe the seaweed, actually, because that had a bit of a vinegary sort of scent to it. Yeah, I wonder if the musk and seaweed, and then we've got the with Sharon's caravan. I did have this garden mint oil laid out, and the reason why was it had that sort of a certain sort of locality to it. And when I think about caravans, I think about sort of quite local holidays, actually. You know, not traveling abroad. So maybe try and embrace that a little bit in this caravan one. Again, it doesn't smell like a caravan necessarily. It's just sort of something that I've sort of thought about that's sort of evocative of caravans without necessarily being a caravan, because it doesn't have to be, you know, it can be quite an abstract response that I'm giving. So I wonder if, just to make it a little bit different from Sharon's as well, whether I'll go for musk, seaweed, and garden mint. So the musk sort of symbolises the kind of flip-flops and caravan, really. Seaweed has got that sort of smell that reminds you of being sort of outside and having seagulls sort of around you. And then we've got the garden mint, which has just got that slight sort of locality to it that reminds me of caravanning sort of in this country, in the UK. I wonder if that's enough. I wonder if that's quite a simple perfume, slightly more abstract response compared to Sharon's response, which also had the wood caravan in there. Let's go for it, because you know, that the spontaneity is what I want to retain. So, musk going in first. This is the base note. Four drops of the musk. Might need a few more. Obviously, it's quite a simple fragrance in how it's constructed, so you might need more of each one. Put 6 drops of seaweed in. Garden mint has got quite a potent sort of smell to it. I wonder if it's worth putting something else in as well. With Sharon's caravan, we put rosemary in, didn't we? Kind of a woody, earthy sort of scent, but that's a top note. Would be nice, but that's quite difficult to find. Again, I'm also trying to think about sort of local. I've got things like eucalyptus and petitgrain, which are, obviously they're kind of they're lovely, but they're not that sort of that locality of something like garden mint is what I'm looking for. We've got sage, which doesn't really. Well, cut grass. Now, I was talking about cut grass earlier, wasn't I? Yeah, it has got a bit of a. It's evocative of that locality. I keep saying the word locality, but it's just because when I think of caravans, I do think of being in this country, of caravanning in the UK. So I am going to use the cut grass. It's going to be, so garden mint and cut grass are going to be the top notes. So 5 drops of the cut grass, 5 drops of the garden mint. So it's going to be quite a fresh, sort of scented sort of fragrance that sort of makes its way down to sort of more earthy, sort of musky scents, which might be quite interesting, and I think quite evocative of what Lynne has said there. Excellent. So we have used, and what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to write on the label what I put on in Lynne's perfume, because I keep forgetting to do that. It's probably the best idea. So Lynne, which is by Lynne wrong, that's good. Check. And we've got seaweed, musk seaweed. Garden mint and cutgrass. Splendid. So that is, how many is that now? 4 created all together. Oh, I've got to the top one. All put the perfumes alcohol in. Here we go. Lynne, this is your perfume. Lynne, I know from sort of being around in Sheffield. She's an artist herself, and we've exhibited together a few times at the gallery that I've just opened. She's exhibited in as well. So I guess you can have this whenever the gallery opens again, really, because I can just give it to you in there. But anyway, this is Lynne's perfume. Thank you, Lynne, for your response. Another one down. Wow, we're powering through them. That's 4 so far. 4 quite varied responses as well, which has been fun. I'll just do it. So what have we got? It's 9 minutes past 11 now. The next schedule is 11:15. So unless anybody's got any sort of perfume order to make in situ now, I'll just do a little bit of tidying up because I'll start getting a little bit lost otherwise in terms of where the fragrances all are. Incidentally, I've got this sort of perfume as well. It's an essential oil sort of stand. The ones at the top here are the top notes. Then these are the middle notes, and these are the base notes. So it just helps me sort of keep organised, really. I've also written BM and T on each oil, so that I know as well, just from that, what's what. Finding out what oil is what is quite a process, really. You can go online and find out things like that. It's also useful to sort of read and talk to people about what notes constitute what. But after a while, you sort of get a bit of a feel for it as well. You smell something and go, oh yeah, that's a top note because it's got a sort of sweetness, a lightness to it. And you smell something that's quite heavy and you go, oh, that's definitely a base note because it's got that sort of that heaviness to it. So it becomes quite an intuitive sort of process eventually, if that makes sense. Intuitive eventually. Yeah, it's something that now I can sort of recognise, certain sort of sense. I'm not fantastic at doing it, like I was saying before. I am very much an artist that uses perfume in their work rather than a perfume maker as such. So there's a lot of sort of core sort of knowledge that I don't necessarily have. Arguably, I don't necessarily want, because I sort of like the idea of being sort of on the outside of the industry, sort of doing things that I couldn't necessarily do if I was inside the industry. Something like this, I've talked to perfume makers before about how I go about making perfumes, and they're almost a bit, I guess, shocked isn't the right word, but they're interested to know how I can just make perfumes on the fly really quickly. And there's a certain freedom in my work. It doesn't have to be fantastic perfumes. They don't have to be particularly nice smelling. They don't have to conform to any particular industry standards, because I'm not making perfumes within the industry. I'm making perfumes as an artist. So there's a certain liberation to that I want to retain, really. So I wouldn't ever really consider trying to be a sort of a master perfumer or anything like that, because I like the freedom that I get from just being able to sort of throw stuff together and see what happens. I've talked to perfumers before, and they say if we make one perfume a year, that's been quite a good year because of all the work that goes into it. And it's absolutely fantastic work that they do, which is completely different to mine, where I've made 4 in an hour there, but they're nowhere near the standard of master perfumery. They're artworks, and as such, they have a value that's different to the value that perfumers generally sort of adhere to. Both disciplines are valid and beautiful in their own way, but yeah, I like where I stand on things, really. So that's yeah, a bit about the perfume making process. If you have any questions at all, you just have to be to do with necessarily with the Scented Souvenirs, then feel free to ask me in the comments. Happy to chat in these sessions. Have a quick drink of water. We're already over halfway through the first session. It feels quite surreal, really, to be making to be doing this project, because it's been a long time coming. I think it was January 2020 that I put in a proposal to do it, and obviously got accepted. So it's been like a year and a couple of months, and since through the coronavirus, it's gone through a few processes of change. It was initially going to be about dice and rolling dice and making a perfume based on what the dice says. They were going to be sort of picture dice, and it was all about sort of highlighting how perfume can sort of contain narratives within it. And that was going to be a physical thing that I was going to do at Bridlington. Then, because we couldn't do physical stuff due to coronavirus, I came upon the idea of trying to make a randomizer that people could go onto on my website and click on, and it would randomize 3 separate words to do with holidays, and then I'd make a perfume based on that. But then I thought, well, there's not a lot for the participant to be involved with there. I want the participant to feel a bit more like they're in control of something, a bit more agency in the process. So I said that they could just give me 3 words instead. So they've got a bit more. There's a bit more to it for them in the process, and I think that's worked well. It's I guess it's a compromise in terms of it was going to be a physical thing, but I think actually it works really well, and I think people have been happy to have all some of their experiences and thoughts to do with holidays. And again, it's holidays as well. It's a fun activity to do, a fun one to respond to, and a bit of fun is great, especially during a difficult time. The fact that it's a fun activity is almost enough to make it worthwhile. So thanks to everyone for the responses that you've given me, and if anybody wants to give me responses during the sessions, then they can do so during the live chat. So it is 11:15, which means it is time for perfume number 5. I'll just have a quick drink of water. And it is from Eira Williams. And so Eira's an artist that me and Sharon have worked with a fair bit in the past during our various endeavours as Frontier, which is what me and Sharon are called when we're doing our sort of gallery open course stuff. You've given me the responses that you've given me there are mountains, lakes, and snow. So very different to the responses that we've had so far. Mountains, lakes, and snow is obviously it doesn't feel particularly local. It feels like it's more of a broad sort of response. Not necessarily the case, of course. You've got Scotland and places like that where mountains, lakes, and snow is absolutely correct. But intuitively, I think abroad when I think of mountains, lakes, and snow. So mountains, lakes, and snow. So again, you can think of literally the mountains, the lakes, and the snow, or you could think about how those words make you feel. And obviously, they're cold. They're sort of cold places. So intuitively, I think about trying to get warm, trying to keep warm in that situation, and how that makes you feel, that comfort, despite them being sort of cold places, that there is that sort of comfort to keeping warm. Things like mountains like snow as well. You've got, obviously, if you go on a holiday around mountains, lakes, and snow, there's a certain sort of clarity to that, and it's the kind of things that would sort of clear your head of any sort of of day-to-day sort of thoughts. So that clarity is something that I could sort of work with. Intuitively, because I'm thinking about warming smells, we've got things like peppers and gingers, which again I'm just going to put to one side so that they're in my periphery while I'm thinking about other things. I'll actually find the pepper. We've got pine out there. Pine. That always reminds me a little bit of sort of more sort of cold sort of climates. So pine and ginger have sort of come up. They've got the cold sort of climate evocation of pine, and you've got the warming sort of smell of ginger, where that's how you want to feel in those sort of environments. So that's quite good, actually. That's quite a good combination to evoke those sort of senses. Now I'm trying to think of what am I trying to think of? What do you make this now? We have got. Yeah, I was going to say that the idea of clarity is something from the context of aromatherapy. There are loads of scents that sort of evoke that sort of clarity. I'm thinking intuitively of things like lemon, actually, or sort of orange. That when you sort of smell them, it gives you that sort of mental sort of clarity. As does something like frankincense. That's got a sort of grounding, a bit more gravity about it, though, which is evocative of mountains, actually. So what I'm going to do, I've got frankincense, pine needle, ginger. And lemon. So we've got frankincense, we've got pine needle, we've got ginger, we've got lemon. They are the scents I'm going to use in response to mountains, lakes, and snow. The frankincense is evocative of a certain sort of clarity that you would get from, being within mountains, lakes, and snow. As does the lemon, although the frankincense has a bit more weight to it, which is again sort of evocative of just the scale of mountains and lakes. You've got pine needle and ginger. Pine needle is evocative of sort of colder climates, whereas ginger is evocative of being warm. So it's kind of a bit of a to and fro there. And then lemon again gives you that sort of that clarity that you get from holidays in general, I suppose, but specifically kind of what comes to mind for me when I think about mountains and lakes, certainly, is what they offer in terms of sort of mental sort of well-being and clarity. So that is what we are going to use today. Again, so it's quite an abstract one. It's not literally, trying to be about mountains, lakes, and snow. It's more about how you feel around those environments, I suppose. So, interesting one, that, because when I first read it, I was like, oh my goodness, I don't really know how to do this. And then I started to think a little bit more abstract about how those kind of environments make you feel, and as such I've come up with a relatively simple, but no doubt quite fresh sort of scent. So we're going to start off with frankincense, the base note. Frankincense is one of my favourite smells, incidentally. It's really sort of earthy and sort of weighty and quite powerful, really. I don't know. It's one of my favourites. Frankincense, the base note, 4 drops. See where we end up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 5 drops. Okay, 5 drops. And then we will put 4 of pine needle and 4 of, well, I was just going to say ginger is actually a really evocative sort of, really potent sort of scent actually. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to put 5 of pine needle in. But I'm only going to put 1 of ginger in because it's that potent that it will overwhelm the rest of the scents. This one, a bit more tricky to get that one out, but there it is. And then the lemon. So we've got 5 drops of lemon. Yeah, that constitutes around 5% of overall fragrance. As I said earlier, they're eau de toilette fragrances that we're making, and as such, the amount of fragrance we put in, the amount of oil that we put in, is around 5%, and around 95% of it is carrier, so perfume as alcohol. And 30 ml goes into the bottle. And there you go, Eira, that is yours made. So that is 5 perfumes already. Excellent. And what I'm going to do, again, as before, is write his name and the scents that I've used. And what is it? What have we used? We've used ginger, pine, frankincense and lemon. Excellent. Thank you, Eira, for your contribution there. One day you will be gifted this here perfume, I assume, unless you don't want it, which is absolutely fine. Made a bit of a mess. That's okay. We've got a lot of these paper towels. Five. Put it there, actually. Spread them out a bit. Great stuff, great stuff, great stuff, great stuff. So that is that's everything until 11:45 actually. So if anybody wants to ask me anything or get me to make a perfume or what, then I don't mind. The floor is yours, as they say. So each of these sessions I'm going to wear a different top, I think, a more sort of summery, more summery tops well, not more summery. Each top is going to be quite summery. I want to try and be as true to the theme as possible, in not only in what I'm making, but what I'm wearing too. See if anybody's seen my various things. Great stuff. Ooh, got it. Excellent. Interesting sessions to do. as I'm sure is the case for a lot of people, I didn't have a huge amount of experience with making videos before coronavirus hit. My work, before that, my work was quite, how should we say, quite interactive in terms of you'd go into a gallery and you'd interact with my work. You'd pick up these bottles and spray them around and share with people. And obviously, the thing is, not only is that obviously not going to happen anymore, but I think there's going to, even when we open up again, I think there's going to be a certain reluctance from people to want to touch stuff and want to interact in a physical way. For years potentially. Certainly for the remainder of this year, I think there's going to be a reluctance there. And as such, I've tried to sort of change the way I work, not just in terms of the fact that I'm recording live streams, but also I'm thinking now sort of after, post having to do live streams all the time, how am I going to create work that's physically viable? Because I don't really think making perfumes and allowing people to touch them is still going to be physically viable, because people aren't going to want to do it. And so I've sort of thought of the idea of using soap rather than perfumes, not to touch, but to exhibit without allowing people to touch. And how I'm going to do that is, hopefully I'm going to start a project soon called Cleanse, that asks for people to respond just with a few words about their experience of coronavirus and the ensuing sort of lockdowns, how it's made them feel, their positive or negative experiences. It's not necessarily just a negative thing. And so they're going to deliver a response to me, and from that response, I am going to create poetry that's sort of influenced by their responses, and that poetry I'm then going to carve onto soaps, and the soaps are going to be exhibited within gallery settings. I'm also going to create sort of online catalogues of the poetry, and it's kind of, as with all my work, it sort of aims to sort of highlight disciplines that are sort of lost to the idea that they're just sort of craft or cosmetic, but actually have sort of artistry to them that can be sort of explored from a contemporary art sort of standpoint. Because rather like perfume, soap has got a huge sort of history to it, and there's a certain craft in making it, of course, and the history of it is something that an artist could utilize in their own work. And the idea of poetry as well is always something that I've been sort of vaguely, almost like a hobbyist, sort of interested in. I've made the odd sort of poem here and there, and I like making them, and like I say, it's more like a hobbyist sort of activity. So I'm going to sort of bring that into the fore, really, and utilize the art of poetry and the art of soap making and bring them together in order to create this body of work. The idea of the poetry sort of encompassing coronavirus being carved onto soap is sort of interesting to me, because from a narrative standpoint, the idea that you use the soap and subsequently remove the poem is quite a neat idea, because it sort of symbolizes the idea that hygiene and staying sort of clean eliminates the threat of disease, and therefore the threat of these coronavirus experiences. So there's that going on, and it's something that hopefully I'll start exhibiting the latter half of this year, probably just within Sheffield initially. But that's going to call Cleanse, and it reminds me of how this practice started, the perfume making that you've seen today. That kind of started really just through a bit of, I guess, a bit of an inquiry to begin with. It was like, well, can perfume withhold sort of ideas, contemporary art sort of ideas? And I'm sort of starting again with soap, really. I'm like, oh, can soap withhold sort of contemporary art ideas? And I've concluded that perfume absolutely can. I wonder what the conclusion is going to be from the soap making. Probably that it can, actually, because it's like I say, it's a very real craft, and it's got this sort of history behind it that's worth looking into. So that's something for the future, something for the next sort of, certainly within the next year, I'd have made some soap poetry hybrids. And if you want to offer me your experiences of coronavirus, you can do so. If you go onto my website, no, actually, my website's not got that up and running yet. If you email bukowskiart@gmail.com, you can offer me those experiences of coronavirus, and then I'll subsequently turn them into a poem. That's for the future. For now, we are still in the midst of doing Scented Souvenirs for ArtWaves Festival in Bridlington. Thank you very much, incidentally, to ArtWaves Festival for being so sort of proactive in terms of getting the festival up and running, albeit in a virtual sort of capacity, because it's not easy having. I'm sure you spent a huge amount of time trying to deliver this sort of physical exhibition event festival, and then for it to be obviously no longer viable was, I assume, a really big sort of challenge. And I think you've done a great job in sort of keeping artists informed as to how to proceed, as well as delivering a really good sort of online festival. So thanks very much to ArtWaves for that. It is 11:34. In 10 minutes time, we will start making Sharon Hall Shipp's Scented Souvenir. But in the meantime, if anybody has any sort of questions or wants me to make a perfume, then feel free to ask in the live chat. I might just see if there is any response through Facebook and the like. Sometimes people see a Facebook sort of message and then it says something like, oh, if you want to give me 3 words about this, that, and the other, you can do so through YouTube, but they might do it on Facebook instead. So I'm just going to make sure they haven't done that. Don't think so. Brian, I've noticed that you've commented on Facebook, but you've also commented on here. So hi, if you're still watching. And I don't think there's been any other traffic, I guess. Oh, we've got a question here from Sharon, no less, Sharon Mossbeck, and she has said, how do you think your perfumes have changed since you started making them? Well, I started making them about 7 years ago, and I didn't know what I was doing, really. It was one of those situations where I had a bit of a hunch that perfume was viable as a sort of art medium. But I had no idea about the perfume making process whatsoever. So initially, it was a lot of just experimentation, actually, and just sort of throwing stuff together, seeing what happens. I knew that I needed sort of essential oils and fragrance oils. I didn't know that I needed perfume as alcohol. I didn't know that you could make them using oils as well. So what I did to begin with was I bought a few essential oils. I bought a few fragrance oils. I found out that I needed perfume as alcohol, so I bought that. I found out that you could make perfume using oil, so I purchased some oils too, like sweet almond oil, unscented oil. But I didn't know that you shouldn't really mix the perfume as alcohol with the oil. They're 2 separate carriers, really. So what I was doing for about two months was I was sort of just throwing together essential oils into a bottle, and then putting perfume as alcohol in it, and also putting sweet almond oil in it. So it was a completely messy concoction that didn't really stick together. You know, there was a load of separation involved. So that was a huge sort of mistake that I didn't realise I was making. But you know, through talking to industry professionals, etc., it soon transpired that I wasn't making them correctly. So I sort of shifted and started realising how I needed to make them. I made them initially too just by sort of using drops. So, you know, with any sort of oil, you've got the pipette sort of inside it there, and I was just sort of tipping over and just counting the drops really, which I still do today to an extent, but I've got a scale instead to use. So I'm sort of, I guess I'm more disciplined than I was in terms of trying to make it as true to an eau de toilette as possible. And also I've got a lot more materials as well. I've got a lot more essential oils, a lot more fragrance oils, different sort of perfumers, alcohol combinations, and different things like this, which is like sherry, kernel, carrier oils. So different, just a lot more equipment, I guess. This is some alcohol gel that I'm just going to pop on my hand because it's getting a bit sort of potent on the hand. So I think they've changed because I'm more disciplined. I think they've changed because I know what I'm doing a little bit more. Whether they sort of smell, you know, objectively better than they do now, I don't really know. But you know, from my point of view, the fact that they are more true to the perfume making process means that the sort of the body of work as a whole has a bit more sort of integrity to it and less gimmick to it. I think when people see that I make sort of scent-based stuff, that there might be an expectation that it's a bit of a gimmick, because I think in general sort of scent in art can be seen as such, but I try and sort of counter that by actually being true to a certain craft and by being disciplined and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I think that's kind of how they've improved, really, just because the process is more true to the process of perfume making, and therefore, as a body of work, it has a bit more integrity to it, I think. Anyway, so I hope that answers your question, Sharon. We are 5 minutes away from the next Scented Souvenir, which is going to be a response by another Sharon Hall Shipp. Her response, I'm not going to read. I've just remembered that I'm not supposed to be reading them yet. So in 5 minutes' time, we will start with making that, and then it will be time to stop the first session. Midday is when this session ends, but I'll be back at 1 o'clock till 3 o'clock this Saturday. Indeed, Sunday as well. Tomorrow I will be here from 10 till 12, and then from 1 till 3 again. So 4 sessions in total. If anybody misses sessions, of course, they can always go on my Facebook, on my YouTube page, and they can sort of see. They'll all be sort of there. They won't be live, of course, but they'll all be there to watch. I'll probably answer. I'm quite new to the whole Facebook Live thing, but I think you can annotate your description. So I'll try and put in the description sort of when I make each perfume, if I can. I don't know if I can, but I'll give it a good go. So there we have it. We've got about 30 perfumes to make altogether. I think there's about 5 or 6 per session, so that's good. But also, of course, that might change depending on if anybody comes at me live with a response to 3 words to do with holidays. And you can see at the live chat there, we've had one from Brian already. We've had a bit of chat from Chris Oliver too, and from Sharon. Yeah. It's been good so far. I didn't know what to expect really, but there's always been a few people watching, which is great, and hi to the people that are watching. and there's been a bit of chat too, which is really good. I mean, I'm not, in terms of my YouTube channel, you know, I'm not particularly developed. I've got about 16 subscribers, I think, and I think the most popular video I've ever done is about 150 viewers, I think, as I've watched it. So by no means a YouTube star, but it's nice to get some consistent sort of viewership here on the live stream, albeit not a huge amount of numbers, but that's fine. That's great. Yeah, excellent stuff. We are very near. We are very near 12:45. I'm going to wait until 12:45, just in case Sharon is going to come online and watch me make it. I don't want to make it too early, so I'll give it a little bit. I'll give it until 12:45, which is when I said I'd make it. Can't really see this bucket and spade. This yellow bucket and spade sort of it's lost a bit, isn't it? Let's see if I can make it look a bit more. There we go. I'll start preparing the. Say what, it's a little bit dirty on here, so I'll just give this a quick clean before we get on with Sharon Hall Shipp's perfume. Literally just watching the clock now, which is not particularly exciting. Apologies to the viewers, because it's not particularly interesting me just watching the clock. But we are very near 1:45 now. In fact, we've just tipped over to 1:45, so I will proceed. So the next scented souvenir that I'm going to make today is, and the last one of this session indeed, is for Sharon Hall Shipp, an artist that I've sort of worked with. Well, I say worked with. I've exhibited with her, alongside her, and I've exhibited her work as well. I don't think we've ever actually met though, Sharon. I'm not sure if we have. I don't think we have. But nevertheless, hello if you're watching. Your response to the Scented Souvenir 3 words is escape, perspective, and clarity. So we've got 3 words there that are more sort of evocative of how you might feel about being on holiday, which is an interesting response. Again, we've had very sort of varied responses over the last sort of session, really. Escape, perspective, and clarity. That's intuitively, I think, actually, that's quite nice for me, because that's kind of how I sort of think with these things as well. I think about sort of from sort of aromatherapy sort of contexts. You know, that's quite a neat response, because there are oils that sort of evoke the idea of escape, of perspective, and of clarity within the oils that I've got today. So intuitively, I'm thinking with the word escape, it would be quite nice to utilize quite an exotic sort of fragrance, actually, because you know, escaping sort of physically as far away from the UK as possible. I've got things like not that Sharon necessarily wants to do that kind of thing. It's just kind of my response to it, really. I've got something called Rage and Sour. Now this is quite a tropical sort of planty sort of smell, made from the leaves of a plant, I believe, but it's from Madagascar. So you know, in terms of escape, that's sort of the idea of sort of tropical or sort of unknown to the UK sort of fragrances, might be quite a neat sort of response there. I'd say the word neat, aren't I? But anyway, so I'm going to use Ravensara, a top note, just to evoke the idea that of escaping and the sort of the unusual, unexpected sort of nature of the scents that you might smell when you're abroad that you don't sort of recognise as being anything like your own sort of scents in the UK. I'm going to go down that route. So I might use frankincense again because escape, perspective, and clarity. You could sort of make a case for each of those words being symbolic of frankincense. You know, you've got from the context of aromatherapy, it offers all three of those things really, but escape as well because it is quite a exotic sort of fragrance. It'll be a useful one to use. So we've got frankincense as the base note, Ravensara as the top note. We have got we've got to find a mid note as well. I'm just having a quick look. See, things like jasmine stand out because that's Egyptian, and again that's got yeah. So jasmine stands out there as being something that I could use because it's from Egypt. So again, it's got that it responds to the idea of escaping. But I don't know. It doesn't feel like quite the right thing to use because it doesn't necessarily offer the idea of perspective and clarity. Quite a sharp. I was thinking quite a sharp. Oh, geranium. No, I don't want to use geranium. Don't feel like that's the right thing to use there. Lavender. We've got chamomile. Juniper berry. I'll tell you what. I said I wasn't going to use black pepper. Actually, did I say that? I was going to say that I'd said that I don't want to use black pepper again. But actually, thinking about it, I don't remember saying that. So I don't know why I thought I said that. So black pepper, again, it's a scent that I really like and I'm drawn to. So for that reason, I sort of feel reluctant to use it because I'm wondering if I'm using it just because I like it. But in terms of offering that sort of, it's a sharp sort of scent, and the sharp sort of scents within aromatherapy sort of contexts do offer that sort of sense of clarity because when you smell them, it sort of jolts you into sort of a clear sort of headed sort of state of mind. So I want to use black pepper in this, but I don't want to just use black pepper as the base, as the mid note. I feel like that's too overbearing. So we need to use something else, and something that offers the idea of escape or perspective or clarity. Something as well. I mean, with the perfumes that I make, I do try. Obviously, it depends on the responses, but I try and make them coherent enough. You know, like frankincense, Ravensara, black pepper. They've got a certain spiciness, certain sort of earthiness to all of them. So that sort of thread runs through. So it's quite a coherent perfume in the end. That's kind of important too. But in my experience of making perfumes, I've not made a terribly bad smelling fragrance, and I think it's because I am so disciplined and I do just try and use essential oils and fragrance oils that just inherently smell nice anyway, and combining them, you know, there's various degrees of success in terms of how they smell when you combine them. But I think sometimes I get people that say, well, why don't you make something out of petrol, because you know petrol's got a very certain sort of evocative smell to it. And I always say, no, I'm not going to do that because it's not something that you necessarily use or at all use in the perfume making process. And I think it's important to sort of distinguish between scent and perfume. Just because something is scented doesn't mean you can use it in perfume. And I think, again, that's where the gimmicky side of using scent in art comes in, because, you know, you might feel obliged to use stuff like, you know, petrol. But I don't know, it comes across as just a little bit gimmicky, really. And that's why I try and not use those kind of scents, and while I try and use sort of scents that you absolutely would find in perfume making. Anyway, enough of that. Let's try and find something for Sharon Hall Shipp to use as a mid-note in her Scented Souvenir that offers clarity. I keep coming back to the idea of jasmine, you know. Right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to use jasmine. Jasmine, I mean, I like using jasmine. It's going to give it a little bit of a floral sort of hint as well, but that's fine. So what we've got here is frankincense, jasmine, black pepper, ravensara. So exotic scents to respond to the idea of escaping. Perspective is offered by the idea of frankincense and the context of aromatherapy, as is black pepper. Ravensara has got that idea of offering that exotic sort of scent and offering a sense of perspective, because you have got that kind of that very real sort of physical distance between the UK and somewhere like Madagascar and somewhere like Egypt, India, that we've got kind of going on here. So quite a worldwide sort of scent. And that's what we're going to make for Sharon Hall Shipp and the final perfume of the day, of the session rather. So we're going to start with frankincense. And I think 5 drops of each note should pop me up to where we need. Then rose. And then black pepper. And then the ravensara. So that's the 4 fragrances gone in. It is time for the perfumer's alcohol. 30 ml. Go straight in. And that is it. That is all the perfumes made really for this session. I'll spend the next hour eating because it's lunchtime, yeah, that is all 6 perfumes created. So thank you very much for joining me for this first session. Thank you for all the responses, and hopefully I will see you from 1 o'clock. So thanks very much and see you later.